So today I am bringing you a perpetual calendar project, much like the one that I shared a few months ago now on my blog for the Artisan Blog Hop, but this one uses the Share What You Love Designer Series papers instead of the Picture Perfect Birthday. So we've got a little bit of fussy cutting, we've still got some of those Picture Perfect Birthday elements. So that gives you a bit of an idea of what we're working on. It all stands up nice, but I'm in my class setting at the moment. Here we are, I'll show you. Flip it around. So I'm all set up for class, and we're about to make this project soon. So I thought while I've got all the things together, I can make a video to show those who can't quite make it to my little Bendigo location how to make a project like this of their own when they're at home. We've also got a matching card to go with that today because I did think that this would be a really nice gift to give to someone. And what's a gift without a little gift card? And Jenny Pauly shared an amazing project that was really great for using up all these little scrap pieces of paper. And I thought that that would be a fun tie-in with all the papers and all the little off-cutty bits that I had left over after making these calendars. So we'll do that one as well. Now I'll show you a little bit about the project. So a few of the pieces that you might like, I've got this picture frame that I picked up from IKEA. It was very affordable, I think it was only about $2, but that made the fun frame to stand it in. I've got some 1-inch binder loose leaf rings, I think they call them loose leaf rings. And they just pop open and click on. So I've got 2 of those. Then I've got some pieces of designer series paper. You could use any papers that you have in your stash. These ones have all been cut to 9 centimetres by 13.3 centimetres. So I've got 6 different sheets, and you just have to have a think about how you want them to all go together in your little perpetual calendar. But to go on those, I have these calendar pieces. So these are available, the printout is available on my blog at jenniferfrost.blogspot.com. Follow the links to the printables and you'll find this. It's only $3 US, and you can print them in either A4 or letter size depending on where you're from. And I just cut them down quite fine. I went quite close to the lines there and made them the right size for the project. So I've just printed them on regular printer paper, but of course you can print them on your Stampin' Up! Papers if your printer can handle the larger sizes, and then cut them down. I'm going to share with you how I designed the front cover for this particular calendar. I've started with a sweet sugar plum card base. Of course, it's typical of me to fall in love with a colour as soon as it retires. But if you don't have that particular tone in your stash, you could swap it over for any of the pretty softer tones that would tie in with these lovely papers. So maybe a soft sea foam, which is the new really soft green, or the petal. Petal pink is a really, really cute corally tone, a very light tone that would go well with this design and these papers. So I've got my 13.3 by 9 centimetre piece of card, and I've just embossed it in my brand new favourite embossing folder, which is also from the Share What You Love promotion, and it's called the Lovely Floral Textured Embossing Folder. Alright, so we've got that as our base, and now I'm just going to layer on a few pieces of the designer series paper. Of course, when you're making a project like this that's packed with papers, you have lots of little off-cutty bits left over, and I've just kept those in a Ziploc bag here, and I'm going to reach through and see if I can find a piece like this one. That would be perfect there, and I like something with the fonts. So I've just dug through my little bag of off-cut pieces, which I keep in a Ziploc case, and I've come across this florally pattern and this one with the fonts, which I think are a really great match. I like adding something with a littler pattern with something that's bigger and bolder. I think that works really well. I'm just going to cut this, I think we'll cut that down a little bit. Maybe this way so I don't cut too much of that colour off. So I'm just going about 3.5 centimetres by just over 3 inches, which is about just over 7.5 centimetres for this first piece. And the second one here I've got is, let's see, about 8 centimetres by about 2.5 centimetres. So I'm going to stick those straight onto the card base. So I've just added a little bit of double-sided tape to the back of those, and I'm going to go up about, I'm using my grid mat to help guide me. I want to come up about, maybe about 1.5 centimetres. And for this piece, oops, oh, I've put the sticky tape on the wrong side. That's hilarious. Alright, so I found another bit here that will work. When you've done something like that, I've just popped the backing of my tape back on there, and I'm going to put that back in my stash because I will use that piece for something else. That's funny. Alright, so I said just over 3 inches, just over 7.5 centimetres. And I might even go in a little bit more than that because I'm looking at this and I think I like it rather than being directly on top, coming out the side a little bit. So that's about another centimetre. Yeah, that'll work. Alright, now I'm going to apply tape and pop that one on. Make sure those pretty colours are sitting up so that they will pop out around the sentiment later. Might go in a little bit more. Just moving that across. Alright, so I've got those two pieces on the base, and now I want to add a little bit of stamped elements, and as I said, I'm using this Love What You Do stamp set from the Share What You Love suite in the brand new catalogue, and I'm choosing the little flower, the little circly florals, and this bigger flower here from this set. So I've just mounted those stamps, and I'm starting with, I've got some Petal Pink for my larger flower, and I've got Rich Razzleberry for this little spray of circular florals. And while it is, I've got the pink ink open, I'm just going to apply a little bit of colour to those flowers. Normally I'd use a blender pen or something because I've just gone with a very basic Whisper White piece here to stamp on, but my friends at the Crafty Carrot Collective have been teaching me so many things, and one of the little tips I picked up was that if you have a pretty dry aqua painter, you can just quickly swish colour on, one petal at a time, and you still kind of get that watercolory look, but a very quick coloured effect. And it hasn't corrupted my paper at all, so that was a really fun little tip. And that's exactly what I'm looking for, just that really soft colour. Now I haven't done that bottom petal, but it will show you that even though, let's see if I can get it in focus. So it just applied that very soft colour and softened it right up. But this one's going to get cut off, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. So I'm going to do a little fussy cutting and show you how we put it all together. I had a couple of new participants in class, and one of the tips I mentioned to them was that as you're fussy cutting, be sure to leave a little bit of a white border around your stamped image. It really helps it pop from the background of whatever you're working with. And my other tip was, where you can, move the paper rather than the scissors. It helps you get a little bit more control in your cutting. And I'm cutting this little flower off here because I don't need that. It's a bit delicate through there. Alright, so now I've got my flowers fussy cut. It's time to pop those little pieces together. I've got this bit, actually I had that tucked in behind there. I might put a little bit of extra tape on the back to help it hold. So I have that bit tucked in there, just poking out. And that helps draw that deeper purple back through the design. And next I've got a little bit of linen thread. And I wanted to add the linen because in some of our beautiful papers we've got some of the more brown tones. And having that touch of that natural linen coming back through helps just keep everything really nice and consistent and tie it all together. When I'm doing my linen, I want to add that again with the tear and tape adhesive. So I've got a little tear and tape adhesive here. I'm going to pop that right through the middle where I know it's going to get covered with that sentiment. And I've got some linen thread. I'm going to put some loops of that in here. Doesn't stand out too much against that sugar plum, but what it does do is add that, just that natural texture. And this one's got a little kink in there. I'm just going to just wet my finger a little bit and giving that a little pull. Alright, so a couple of just random loops, and I like having this little bit coming out the side here, so I'm going to... So I've got my sequin trim here, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to add a little bit of our tear and tape adhesive in behind where I want to put the flower heads that we cut out. So they're going to be positioned about here. So I'll pop a little tear and tape there. I'm going to use that for just a strip of sequins. I wanted just something with that metallic shine. Everyone loves a little bling. And to secure that in place, I'm using a little bit of tear and tape on the back of my flower. And that's going to layer over the top and hold it in place. There we go. Just pulling those petals forward just a little bit. Alright, so the last step is our sentiment. I have a piece of Whisper White over here. I wonder if that's wide enough. Let's have a look. Perfect. Must have been an offcut from something because I had a whole bunch about the same size. So that's almost 3 centimetres. I'll do my stamping and then cut it down to the right size. So I need my Picture Perfect birthday stamp set. So I've got my Picture Perfect birthday stamp set. I've just chosen the Celebrate the Good Stuff sentiment, and I've put that on my clear block. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a two-toned effect using my ink. Beauty of photopolymer is you can see straight through it, and I'm going to just pick up ink on the Celebrate just by eyeballing that. Now, of course, this little The Good Stuff sits right up very close to the Celebrate, so you might find that you get a little bit on the very tops of those, but that doesn't matter. It will create a bit of an ombre effect as we draw the colour down with our Sugar Plum pen. So I've got the brush end of my Sugar Plum marker. I'm colouring that down just on the words beneath Celebrate. Little huff and puff on the stamp there, going close to the edge. Excuse my head a minute. Alright, firm press, back up. Lovely, we've got that two-toned sentiment. Now I'm going to trim that down just a little bit. I'm just going to make that a little bit skinnier too, I think. So I've trimmed that one down to the size that I want it, and before I stick it on, I'm going to add a little bit of the pearlized doily. I loved the last lot of doilies that we used to have, the delicate doilies, so it's taken a little bit of adjusting to get used to this particular doily, the new one, because it's a little bit different, a little bit more open space, but I'm coming around. I'm really enjoying playing with it now. So I've cut out a section, it's a little bit bigger than a quarter, just enough so that it will pop out the bottom there. And that's the only bit that I'm going to sit up on dimensionals. So I've got 2 dimensionals on there. I'm going to take the backs off those and position that in place. I kind of want to make sure there's a little bit of green around that sentiment on this side. And then the very lucky last thing that I had to add, I received a little pack of the embellishments from the Share What You Love suite, and they included these gorgeous little roses. And I couldn't help but add one to this project. Often I save little embellishments like this because you want to make sure they go on something really special. I'll bring it up nice and close. So they sit in your stash and you end up collecting them until you've got an excuse to use them. But a decor piece like this that's going to sit on someone's desk or at someone's home for a long period of time is perfect for making sure that an embellishment like this is not wasted, that it's just going to be there to be enjoyed for a long time. So I've popped that on the top corner. I think I kind of missed the mark there. And layered that on like that. So that's our finished design. Of course, you just need the holes if you're going to pop it in your calendar. But I finished my sample calendar, so I don't need to do that. I'm going to show you how it looks on a card front. So I think I have decided, I've decided to go with a rich raspberry card base, and I'm cutting that to 149 millimeters, just shy of 150 millimeters, and I'm going to score that at 105 or 10.5 centimeters if you prefer centimeters. And I'm going to just mount that on the front of the card. And there we have it. The front of our calendar, or you could turn it into a beautiful card front. So I've just grabbed my Stamparatus tool and I'm using the Picture Perfect birthday stamp set. I've got this little ribbon, present ribbon, and I'm going to pop that on here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I need 3 of these. When we're making a calendar project like this, we can cycle through some of our designs and copy them over, so we're not recreating something individual for each piece. So I've got the ribbon here in January, and I've got one further on in my design in May, and one in December. So I'm going to stamp, there's December there. So I'm going to stamp 3 of those. I've gone with Sweet Sugar Plum, and that is a retired colour, but you could stamp off on Rich Raspberry to get a lighter colour purple that would suit this project quite as well. So I've got my ink pad. And I'm going to apply the ink. I'll bring that down a little bit closer so you can see. So I've applied the ink there, and I'm going to stamp that in place like that. And I need 3 of those for this project. So I'm going to move that across. I might move it across just a little bit more. No, they can be quite close together because they're going to be fussy cut out. And a little bit more. One more over. And then I'm going to add the internal shadowing. So there's a matching stamp, and I've got my second plate here, so I'm going to leave that one mounted. We've got class coming up soon, and the ladies will be able to use that straight away. I'm just looking at how that's going to fit on and positioning it exactly where it's going to need to go. This initial positioning is very important when you're doing several. The village where I work has a little gym just in behind me, so I think someone's having a little turn on the treadmill. And I'm doing that darker colour in Rich Raspberry. And just the same, because it's already positioned, I can just move it across, re-ink, move it across, and re-ink. And then I've got the 3 that I need, and I just need to fussy cut them out for my calendar pages. Once you've got that piece fussy cut out, you'd cut all of them and do this at the same time across 3 different months. But I've just chosen to show you January so you get the idea. I put a little bit of tape just on the back at the top, and I'm going to line that up along the bottom there. And I'm going to use a little bit of tear and tape adhesive to hold on a little bit of sequins. I've got the silver sequin trim here. I only need a little bit. That's just going to pop out the side of our little bow. I use tear and tape when I'm doing embellishments that are a little bit heavier than paper on paper, just like this. And that I'm going to use a little bit of tear and tape on the back of, just to have a little bit more reinforcement on those sequins. And that's one of the designs completed. Just need to be aware of where we're putting our dots. So I've got a I've got a hole punch here, and I'm going to use my other one as a guide. If I can pull that out there. You don't have to be too precise, but you do need to make sure that wherever you decide to go for the first hole is where all the rest of them will go, so that your design sits nice and neat. So I'm just laying that over the top there, and I can see on my grid paper that that's about 1.5 centimetres in and about 1.5 centimetres down. So I've got a marker here, and I'm going to make a mark where I want those to go. And I will punch those out. And that's our first piece completed. So I've shown you how to pop that card front, or the calendar front together, sorry, and I've shown you how to put January's piece together. The rest is just a little bit of stamping, doilies. I did add some silver twine, but when we were doing class we decided to take that out because it would get caught on the fussy cut elements of the month that followed. Now for this particular patterned paper there was no need for stamping because we had this beautiful element that we could pull out of a scrap piece to feature, and I've just layered on where I've wanted to. I've layered on a little bit of coloured cardstock to help things really pop. For this purple pattern, I've added another fussy cut element from the papers and a little circle just to help it sit from the back of the paper. When you're putting your calendar together, just think about where these numbers are, because if you're going to write a birthday on the 17th of April or the 1st of April, you're not going to want your embellishment to sit too far down. Another thing that we found in class, as we put the calendar together, you want to punch the holes while it is that you're holding your calendar all together. You need to know what order your pieces are going to go in so that when you punch your holes, because we free punch them, we wanted to make sure that they are all sitting in the right place when it comes time to put the calendar. Some of my class friends found that as they were putting their calendar together, because they weren't mindful of that, if they had lined those pieces up like this, the holes were off, and that stopped it from sitting in place. So work out your calendar order, stick all the pieces onto your calendar, making sure that on the back of January you've got February, then you've got March, and then on the back you've got April. Sit them all in order. It's going to sit November 1st in this particular example. Line them up like that, and I used my hole punch. You could use it the way I showed you for the January page, or you could just line it up. In class I showed the ladies, if we were very gentle, you could sit that little punch element right there in place, and you can feel when it's in the nook, and then you can squeeze it shut to know that you've used that top piece as a template. So just do what works for you, making sure all your pieces are in the right order before you punch them, and making sure they're all in the right order maybe even before you decorate them, because you want to make sure that you don't punch into pieces that you've embellished. So I'll show you my pieces here all together. So the calendar front, I've gone with the rosette like you saw for January. A little bit of stamped imagery from the Love What You Do stamp set, which I showed you for the cover. Some fussy cut papers, which I've helped sit up from that background paper with a little bit of scrap cardstock I had on hand. More fussy cut papers. Don't you just love the shimmer in those papers? And I've repeated some of the elements over again where they're not going to be seen sitting together. Another fussy cut element that I've just put on a black stitched oval. Here we go, that's that same one repeated again. A little bit of the green flowers sitting up on a stitched oval, a little bit of thread in behind that just to help it sit and stand out a little bit. For this lovely green leaves, I've gone with the purpley flowers again. And there we had it. I hope you've enjoyed that project. I hope you managed to do it in class. I had allowed 2 hours for my class friends to do it, and I had 6 ladies in the session, but it did take quite a bit longer. This is a very advanced project, and it did take quite a bit longer. 2 of my ladies were brand new, and they did awesome. Their projects looked amazing, but it was a bit of a trial by fire because it was a big one to jump into. But I hope you enjoyed that project. If you've liked it, please do let me know by leaving your comments here in YouTube so that I know that you're enjoying my projects and you want to see more in future. Also hit subscribe so that you get to see new projects as they come available. Remember, if you want to pick up a copy of this particular template, it's only $3 US. It's next to nothing. So head on over to my blog, jenniferfrost.blogspot.com, and follow the menu link to printables, and you'll find all my little printable files in there to purchase. Thank you so much for joining me.